Hello and welcome to Interlinked by CNES. We are a podcast that tries to approach certain key issues by looking at it through various perspectives. And we try to do this by having conversations on various topics that revolve around the areas of polity, economy, or society. For today's conversation, we'll be looking at the idea of truth telling from filmmaking. And we have come upon this topic as we're living in a world where stories are often suppressed, and the powerful get to design how they are told and in what way they are told. In such a world, art becomes an important field where people are able to retell their stories and sort of show their hidden truths. And so, what we're trying to be looking at is how are such stories retold and what are the efforts that go behind in such a retelling. And to answer this question, we have with us Professor Chandrabanu. Professor Chandrabanu is not only a professor of history in OP Jindal Global University, but he is also a director of the movie Bharatapuram. The movie is delves into the caste-based atrocities that took place in Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu in the 1980s in India. And so, having the opportunity to have a conversation with someone who has worked so closely with this idea of using art to tell a story is really a great opportunity to look at how movies are made and how a story is discovered and how the two interject. So, thank you so much for joining us, Professor Chandrabanu. If
Yeah, welcome, Nandini. I'm also very happy that my student is organizing this podcast.
Okay, sir. I'll just get into the questions right away. Our first question for you is, as a filmmaker, you took on the responsibility of storytelling. What was your bigger fear? Was it that you might tell the facts wrong, or the facts may be perceived wrong, or the meaning may be told wrong, which was of greater importance?
See, the third point is somewhat I fear that whenever we try to tell a story, the larger audience and the dominant media try to distort them. I'll tell you how they try by giving some kind of hypothetical examples. When we try to reflect the voices of the marginalized, right? Especially in cases like caste atrocities, they often perpetuate this violence by hiding the facts. Like they try to give a different meaning. So they say, okay, the violence happened not because of caste, because of something else.
Mm.
And when we tell the story, they tell, okay, you have certain your own vested interests by telling this story. You are trying to benefit out of that. This kind of interpretations people create in the dominant media. So they don't take the truth of the story or the conviction that we have. See, I have been working on this topic for past 15 years, and I wanted to tell this story to the wider people. But in academia, I faced a lot of challenges, and now in the movie making also, I'm very sure that the media will not accept the story in my own version. What they will try to give a meaning will be according to the dominant ideologies.
Yeah. So, so as a filmmaker, you said that there are people who are trying to distort the sort of meaning that you're trying to tell. So this also leaves more space for mistakes, right? So you would have had to take every step with certain care. So in such a space, whose perspective did you choose to adopt in the movie, and how did you come by that decision?
See, I have taken two kind of perspectives. One, the perspective of the victims, the oppressed, and then we have the perspective of the law. See, that is the Indian Constitution, right? I am trying to combine both the constitutional perspective as well as the oppressed perspective. And of course, you can ask me, why don't you consider the perspective of the dominant communities or the, what do you say, uh, culprits, to put simply, right? You see, when we are taking the perspective of the law, then there is room for them as well, the dominant classes. However, what we have in the wider media, wider common sense, right? You might have read the concept common sense. The common sense is already an ideological, cultural articulation of the dominant classes. So we are already in that common sense. We are living in that common sense. The target of the ambition of the social scientist is trying to come out of that common sense and trying to bring the voice of the oppressed as well as the voice of the constitution. So that is what I'm trying to do here.
Mm. So, in bringing out this voice of the oppressed and the constitution, at what point, like, were you were telling their facts of the story, but at what point did your interpretation become unavoidable and sort of seeped into the story, and how were you able to take that from there?
I'm playing a role here. It's not that I'm absent here. So I cannot be absent completely because I am acting as a writer and as well as a director. So I will decide obviously, what position I can take for myself. So my position here is trying to reflect the marginalized, trying to reflect the constitutional perspective.
And so you were also, you were of course one of the main people influencing the story, but did you also feel other people's interpretation sort of coming in while you were making the story?
Definitely, I have interacted see, throughout my research also. I have been talking to various people, including my own supervisors in my PhD, and then the intellectuals, the public intellectuals, some that they come from different ideological perspective, and most importantly, the marginalized people, where I met them throughout my research. Definitely, they in many occasions gives me a different information or kind of interpretation of that incidents. So I will negotiate with that in my mind, like my own idea plus their idea, and they interact and they come up as a new idea.
Hmm. So the you said that other people's interpretations came in, but maybe when you started the movie, the filmmaking, you must have imagined to tell the story in a certain way. So at any point did you start feeling a sort of resistance from the story? You started seeing that the story was going in a way that you had not expected or had not intended, and how were you able to, like, how did you deal with that sort of situation?
See, the only issue that I faced is the budget. See, the problem when I was not able to control the budget, then only I felt that okay, movie is going beyond my control. Apart from that, you see, we often in social sciences do not consider the role of capital in producing literature. All
Yes.
right. I don't know whether I told you sometimes earlier or whether you have heard it. No. Karl Marx also used to get financial support from Engels, who was a capitalist then, who was coming from bourgeoisie class. So even to produce a literature that reflects the marginalized voices, somehow you need some support from the capital or capitalist classes. So yeah, that was one of the biggest challenge I faced in making this movie.
Okay, so straight to stray away from the questions a little bit, then how were you able to get this capital, and how were you sort of able to overcome that challenge?
Like, I try to make it a kind of socio-political movement among my own friends, among my own ideological comrades. So they ventured over a period of time. They realized, okay, this is what required for the movement. So they all knew that the political scenario of this country at the moment is not really pro marginalized. So when we tried to venture this movie, uh, this is primarily funded by the faculties across universities, the lecturers or teachers and university faculties. So it became a kind of project of teachers.
And sir, how were you able to spread across this message across universities and able to get the attention of so many professors?
See, I have been in universities since 2 decades, right? I have wider friends network. Most of them, I mean, the circle that I have, the friends circle that I have is, ideologically committed one. So they actively supported me that in that matter.
So I think the next question that we have is, if the film is remembered as a record of past rather than an intervention and how we see it, what do you hope it unsettles in the viewer?
See, for Indian cinema, particularly the South cinema, what we have is typically they created a tag called commercial cinema, and in that they do not try to tell the stories of the marginalized or oppressed, or they do not try to tell certain kind of realities, right? They tell the stories sometimes realistic, but they are uh, primarily pro-establishment. See, you must have seen some South Indian movies, big budget movies. They become pan-Indian movies. But this movie, uh, compared to all those so-called pan-India or big budget movies, tells people from marginalized perspective, and definitely the film circles as well as the audience will feel an alternative experience of India right now.
Sir, you said that you had to garner the help of other professors and your friends in order to make the movie. So, as a movie maker, it's not only a job to tell the story, but also to have an audience that receives it. So,
Yeah.
did these two interests ever clash? And what was your priority in in such a situation?
See, my priority is always stick to the story. There is no compromise in changing the story. What I did is, over a period of time, like, I have been working on this project for past 4 years. Over a period of time, what I have learned is how to tell the story interestingly. So that is there. I mean, the way I told the story uh, had been changed over a period of time. Like, say, when I began it in 22. Now, my perspective, like my thought process has changed a lot. Now I'm thinking, yeah, even it is an realistic story of subaltern. Still, I need to tell it in an interesting manner so that audience will watch it and try to accept the story.
Mm. Sir,
So
actually, this is
that
very
is cool.
because this is very interesting. Because when I was thinking of the topic, I was thinking how other ideas may have influenced you and sort of distorted the story. But now that you mention it, your perspectives may have also changed so much along the years. So, how you would have had to incorporate the conflicting views that you had with your past self. So, how were you able to do that?
See, obviously, the ideas keep evolve. Uh, at the same time, after reaching certain point of time in my own life, right, I remained stagnant regarding certain ideas. That is the kind of social justice, the kind of equality, the kind of idea that we speak about. Anti-establishment or anti-exploitation, whatever. So these ideas remained as core of my movie making or storytelling, at least for past 10, 15 years. What changed is within this larger understanding, the smaller positions like what to do, what not to do, right? These are smaller things that keep evolve. The kind of strategy that I might wanted to do, follow. Uh, these things keep evolve, but at the same time, the core of what you said, the exploitation or pro equality or ideas of social justice, they remained by and large static with me.
So I think the next question comes from like a personal space of where of what I feel between the intersection of art and history. And from what I've learned in the few years I have learned is that art becomes a better way of understanding or receiving history than mere learning of facts. And I felt that when I first read this book called A Fine Balance. And after reading it, I understood the emergency like I had never understood from facts. And so I felt that art may be a better way of telling or receiving sort of history. So you were on the other end of it. You were in the making of art. So did you also feel that you were able to better understand history through this making of art?
No, I can't say that I understood history better through art, because I completed my studies just as a historian, history student. And then when I come to think, disseminating my ideas about a nation, about caste, about whatever I feel important, then especially for the masses, not for the students. For the students, definitely history as a discipline is important. But when it comes to the wider masses who are not professional history students, for them, art is definitely an important tool than history. See, history is definitely a boring subject for the wider audience, because they can't pay substantial hours of time to read one chapter or one article. They just wanted to get the ideas within shorter times, like within half an hour, 2 hours. They wanted to learn a complete book, which is not possible in real terms. So for students, I believe history is as a discipline good. For the wider masses, art is good to communicate anything.
Because I wanted to ask, as both a professor and a filmmaker, which one do you think could be a better way of learning history? So I'm guessing you're saying that both have their own places depending on who is trying to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I think we're on the last question now, which is, do you wish something specific for the audience to take from the movie? Since you're the storyteller, is there something that you want the audience to interpret it? And how would you feel if the audience interprets something else that you never meant to sort of convey?
I'm not sure how people will react or interpret beyond my vision, beyond my perspective. If they interpret beyond my vision, I can't say anything. It's up to them. What I can do at best is I try to tell my point as clear as possible. That's all.
Okay, Professor. Then I think these are all the questions that we had. I think just before closing, I'd just like to acknowledge how much it means to us for you to have this conversation with us. Because I feel like I have taken up law, but until 12th and all of and in general also, I've been interested in sort of learning history, and I think it comes across many of our minds to sort of write a book or make a movie, but that's not something you can just sort of execute. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of research to have the opportunity to talk to someone who has actually put in the sort of efforts it takes to understand not only the story but the people also is sort of very gratifying. So thank you so much for joining us for this conversation, sir.
Yeah, welcome. And I'm also very much thankful to you for inviting me for this to this podcast.